Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Be prepared. But what does be prepared even mean? Why should you prepare? What are you preparing for? Should you even be prepared? Well, today I'm going to answer all those questions and more, so stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to Steps to Survival. What does be prepared mean? Well, if you look at the exact definition in the dictionary, it means to be ready for something. But be ready for what? When Robert Baden-Powell, the founder of Boy Scouts, was asked this question, his answer was, why, for any old thing. Baden-Powell wanted to train Boy Scouts in first aid skills so that they would be prepared to take action during a disaster. But he wasn't just talking about disasters. He was also talking about being prepared for everyday situations and challenges. This video is going to be more about how to be prepared for problems that might come up in everyday situations, and less about widespread disasters and survival situations. I've developed 4 questions that will help you be prepared for almost any situation. First, I'll tell them to you, then I'll explain them and show you an example of me using them. Here are the questions. The first one is what problems could come up in this situation. The second one is how could I prevent these problems. The third question is how can I solve/treat these problems. And the last one is does the cost of preventing or solving these problems outweigh the problems themselves. Let's imagine you're planning a swimming trip to the lake with your Boy Scout troop. Let's use these questions to try to prepare for that situation. Let's think about this. What problems could come up in this situation? Well, I've already answered this question. The problems that could come up, number 1, we could have dehydration. That's pretty bad. We could get sunburn, also a problem. Someone could get lost. That's a very bad problem. Drowning, you could see that happening at a lake. And hypothermia, if it gets too cold, that's also a problem. So these are the main problems that I can see. The reason we ask this first question is because we want to diagnose what problems we might have. You can't fix something if you don't know what's broken. Let's ask the second question. How can I prevent these problems? So what it means by prevent is how can I make these problems from never happening? So let's take a look. Dehydration, how can I prevent that? Well, we could bring a lot of extra water and we could remind everyone who's going on the trip to bring lots of water. That would most likely prevent dehydration. Okay, second problem. Sunburn, how could we prevent that? We could bring sunscreen, a lot of sunscreen, and we could make sure everyone uses sunscreen before getting into the water, and make sure if we're there for an extended period of time that we use it consistently. So that would prevent sunburn. Number 3, getting lost. How could we prevent this? Well, we could use the buddy system, if you know what that is, to where you have a buddy and it's not that complicated. So you can use a buddy system. That would fairly well prevent getting lost. Number 4, drowning. How could we prevent this? Well, we could teach everyone safety rules of swimming and make sure we know that ourselves, and just make sure everyone knows the safety rules of swimming. So that would prevent, it wouldn't completely prevent drowning, but it would help prevent drowning. Okay, so number 5, hypothermia. How could we prevent this? Well, we could make sure, check the weather forecast, and if it's too cold, we won't go. If the water's too cold, we won't go. But we could also maybe have a fire built at the same time so people could warm up by the fire, or just have some make sure everyone brings warm enough clothes. So I think we've answered the second question. Now let's ask the third question. How can I solve/treat these problems? Now, this question goes very well with the second question, because the second question is how do I stop these problems from ever happening, whereas the third question is how do I treat these problems once they happen. So this is already after the problem is happening or during the time that it's happening. So this So always prevention goes first because you don't want it to happen, whereas treatment, that's just in case it does happen. So let's take a look at this. Dehydration. Well, from what I've seen with the prevention, we don't really need to solve dehydration because we've already solved it because we're making sure we bring water and reminding everyone to bring their own. Solved. Sunburn, how could we treat it? Well, I think we've already basically prevented that, so we don't need to treat it. Okay, getting lost, how could we treat or solve that? Well, we could just bring a phone so that we could call the police or whatever if someone gets lost. We could split up and look for them in pairs or something like that. So we could solve that by doing that. But I think we've prevented that, basically. Drowning, how could we treat that? Well, we could have a lifeguard, and the lifeguard is not preventing drowning. It's treating it, because when someone starts to drown, the lifeguard can save their life. So that would be treating the problem. And we could know life-saving skills, teach everyone those skills. That would be treating it. Hypothermia, how could we treat that? Well, we could have matches with us, and maybe if we didn't build a fire, we can build a fire once someone gets really cold. That could be a way of treating hypothermia. Okay, so I think we've answered this third question. The fourth question is also an important question, and it just ensures that we don't waste time or energy on something that may not be as bad as we think. So, the question is, does the cost of preventing or solving these problems outweigh the cost of the problems themselves? So what this means is, if I prevent these problems, will I be making more problems for myself by preventing these than the danger of the problems themselves? Or will it take away more from me? So in this situation, if you look at it, if you remember how we prevented and treated these problems, I don't think anything really outweighs the problems. Getting water, that's not expensive, so it won't outweigh the problem. But I can give you one example. It's kind of a silly example. But as you know, a lot of people like to be prepared for the zombie apocalypse. And I think that's just a hobby, and if it is, go for it. But I hope no one actually believes this, but let's use this as an example. Say you wanted to prepare for the zombie apocalypse. Well, when you got to this fourth question, you would realize that because the zombie apocalypse is like a 0 chance of happening, then you're just wasting your efforts of trying and resources by trying to prevent and solve the problem if it's not going to happen. So in that situation, you would say, it does. Yes, you would answer this question with yes. But in our swimming trip situation, no, it doesn't outweigh the problems themselves. I hope you can see that with these 4 questions, it really does help us be prepared for different situations. Just so you can get an idea of what this really is, I'm going to do one more example. So instead of a swimming trip, this is going to be what the situation is. Say you got a new job. And to get to your job, you have to walk through a dangerous neighborhood. Maybe there's lots of gangs there or lots of fighting going on there. And so let's try to be prepared for that situation. So what problems could come up in that situation? Well, someone could attack you. Someone could try to rob you while you're walking. Those are some pretty bad problems. How could I prevent those problems? Well, one way you could quit your job, get a new job in a different place, and you'd never have to go through that town, and those problems would never happen. Another way you could do it, if you didn't want to quit your job, you could just go another way to work. Other than that, there's really no way to really prevent them too much. Let's go on to the third question. How can I solve/treat these problems? Well, if you got a new job, you won't need to solve them anymore, but let's say you didn't. Let's say you didn't do any of those prevention. What would you do to treat? Well, you could have some sort of self-defense weapon like, I don't know, pepper spray or a gun of some sort, so that would solve, if someone did attack you, you'd be able to protect yourself. Let's ask the fourth question. Does the cost of preventing or solving these problems outweigh the problems themselves? Well, let's think about this. So if you remember how we prevented this dangerous neighborhood thing, we could quit our your job. You could quit your job. Well, maybe you really need this job and you're not sure if you could get another job. So maybe quitting your job would outweigh the cost of someone maybe attacking you. But other than that, I don't think any of them really outweigh. So this is just personal, how I've never been in this situation because I don't have a job. And I've never been in a swimming trip situation either because I don't usually plan swimming trips for the Boy Scouts. These are just examples for you guys. And so really I think we've answered all these questions, and I do hope that you use these questions when you're trying to prepare for different situations and you understand that these can really help you be prepared. I'm going to do a video soon about some different skills you should have to be prepared, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you use these questions. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment on this video, and I'll see you next time on Steps to Survival.